can talk about regenerative economies without talking about waste. Now, specifically, we're going to be thinking about human waste. And bear with me for a minute. There are some pretty ingenious ways of using human waste being developed. I'm going to ask you some questions in just a moment. And I'd like you to hold up, there should be some signs on your tables. One of them, which there's a big thumbs up next to a toilet. One of them, which is a toilet being plugged. So we've got true for the thumbs up by the toilet, and we've got false for the clogged toilet. So cleared is true, clogged is false. So with that in mind, quiz time. So, first question, true or false? Housing bricks can be made from urine and calcium hydroxide powder, aka lime. You've got 20 seconds to confer on your table, and then I'd like you to hold up one of those signs for true or false. We've got some true, false, true. You've got two signs, excellent. Definitely true down here. Okay, seems like most people are going for true. That is in fact true. In 2019, a study concluded that bricks made from urine offered comparative strength to conventionally made bricks. They were made by combining urine with sand and bacteria, which creates a cement-like substance. Nice. Next question. Buses can be converted to be powered by the gas derived from food, sewage, and commercial liquid waste. So buses can be converted to be powered by the gas derived from food, sewage, and commercial liquid waste. Confer on your tables and then hold up your sign. True, 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 true. Lots of trues. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Organic waste degrades in anoxic environments which produce methane-rich biogas. This biological phenomenon can be harvested and optimized for biomethane production through anaerobic digestion. Sorry, my apologies. All right, final question. Meat has been synthesized from the proteins found in human waste. Meat has been synthesized using the proteins found in human waste. We've got a false, a false. We've got a true, we're hedging our bets over here. I respect that. We've got a false, we've got some tables with no answers. False, true. That, guys, is in fact true. Japanese researchers have isolated the proteins from bacteria in sewage and then prepared it by extracting the basic elements of food and recombining them. But there's a word of warning, just one word of warning. The scientists literally said, basically the word of warning is that you need to cook it, and the scientist said, don't eat poop, but if you are going to, make sure it's cooked. Now, that might sound like a little bit of silly fun, but there was a point to all of that. And the point is sometimes you need to think outside the box a little. Modern solutions for modern problems, right? And I think also it's really important to consider when you have a reaction to something, why do you have that reaction to it? Is it based on a preconception, a misconception? Is it based on something that you've heard before? So bear all of that in mind as we go through this session. But let's meet our fantastic speakers. So up first, we've got Sam, excuse me. So Sam is the co-founder and CTO of GridShare, which is a startup that's revolutionizing data center design and operations to accelerate the energy transition and directly address carbon emissions. In 2022, GridShare launched its first energy-flexible data center at a hydroelectric power station in Southland, marking a significant milestone in the integration of renewable energy and data center infrastructure. Passionate about energy equality, literacy, and community empowerment, Sam is a founding member of the Littleton Energy Transition Society, which is a charity focused on community energy, resilience, and decarbonisation. Sam holds a Bachelor of Science in Physics from Canterbury University and resides in Littleton with his family. We are also bringing up Harmaan, and Harmaan is a physicist at heart and a mechanical engineer by training. He's passionate about our natural world and the intersection of science and engineering with public policy to drive outcomes. Harmaan has applied his learning to develop low-cost, low-energy sanitation solutions and founded Alimentary systems to convert Aotearoa's $17 billion organic waste emissions liability into economic value. Alimentary's waste-to-value model is circular, creating near zero waste and zero emissions. Outcomes from their Intelligent Bioenergy Resource Recovery Plant, aka BERP, include clean energy, cleaner waterways, and increased biodiversity. So welcome up to the stage, Sam and Harmaan. Lovely to see you. Hi, Harmaan. Grab a seat. Thank you. Okay, so this session is about regenerative economies, and specifically the Regenerative Economic Ambition, which was recently released by Christchurch NZ. Now, there's a few parts to this. I'm going to show you a video firstly in which the CEO of Christchurch NZ talks about that regenerative economic ambition. We're then going to hear from Sam and Harmaan on some of the ways that the technology that exists today can nudge us that one step closer to that type of economy. And then I'm going to be handing over to you because we do have an ask for you. And that ask is to write your thoughts down around some of the opportunities, some of the challenges around such an ambition, and then we're going to be discussing it with the people around the room. So keep that in mind as you're listening to the Christchurch NZ CEO, Ali Adams, and also as you're listening to Sam and Harmaan. But firstly, over to Ali.
The Christchurch Economic Ambition is a long-term, multi-generational light on the hill. It's a strategy to help us move towards becoming a more regenerative city where we have a genuinely regenerative economy. It's an extractive economy through sustainable and circular to one where we're really starting to repair the damage and the challenges that have been done to our world and making money as a city whilst we do so. Christchurch is really well placed to lead this. The Council asked Christchurch NZ to develop this strategy on behalf of the city, and we did so in consultation with a broad range of stakeholders. But it's not something we can deliver on our own. We need a movement of people to commit to this, to agree that it's the right thing for the city to do, to tell our great stories about things that are already happening here, and to help us on this journey. So if you want to be part of this movement, please reach out to us. There's a QR code that Louisa will share that you'll be able to see to access the ambition online, find out a little bit more, come and talk to us and come and be part of this journey.
Thanks, Ali. So I will share the QR code. Before we do that though, I would like to firstly hear from Sam on some of the ways that data centres are helping with energy consumption.
Thank you, Lisa. And if anyone missed it, Lisa's starting a steakhouse restaurant that she's built herself, and she'll transport you there. So look out for the announcement coming soon. Yeah, but kia ora koutou, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thank you to the sponsors. I'd like to speak to you today about data centres and energy and waste that we see in there. So I'm wondering if anyone has an idea of a constant of energy. What is something that's constant about energy in the world around us? Does anyone have any thoughts? Entropy, yeah. Technical, yep. Anything else? Okay, I'll give it to you. Change. Energy is always changing. Changing form from kinetic to electrical to chemical and back again in terms of charging your EV and moving around. Wind and solar and hydro, they are constantly changing in intensity. Sometimes there's sun, sometimes there isn't, sometimes there's wind, sometimes there isn't. These sources of energy are cheap, clean, and abundant, but only sometimes. The abundance of this source of energy is not always aligned with the consumer demand that we have in society today. So the impact of that mismatch between supply and demand is actually huge. It's the reason we don't have a 100% renewable grid today. To meet the peak demands that we have in society, we need to build the infrastructure to meet the worst day ever. And you can see on the graph here of Orion network that serves Canterbury. They've built it at about 620 megawatts of infrastructure, but it's only meeting about an hour or two a day. This is a typical load profile for a day in Christchurch. The mornings and the evening peaks. And you can see all the space up here is all unutilized infrastructure. That's hundreds of millions of dollars of transformers and poles and wires that just sit idle, kind of like a 4-lane highway that's only busy and full for an hour or two a day. The cost of that infrastructure has to be borne by all of us who buy electricity in these times. Bit of a waste, I would call that. Let's move to data centers now. The one thing that comes to mind I'd like to ask you when you think about a large data center like this in terms of energy, what is it? Does anyone have first thought that comes to mind? Heat, yep. To create that heat, they consume a lot of energy. They're kind of energy hogs, if you like. We consider them to be immovable demand for energy currently. And the media loves talking about this as well. But what if it doesn't have to be that way? Instead of giant monolithic slabs of energy demand, data centers have the potential to be flexible in the energy that they consume. We're just not leveraging that. Many of the tasks that data centers handle, increasingly more so these days, are simulations, data processing, and AI training. They're not needed in real time. You don't need the answer from that compute instantly. It's actually just churning away in the background a lot of the time. This means we can pause and resume those processes, meaning the energy that they consume can be paused and resumed. Data centers that work this way are able to ramp up and use energy when renewable energy is plentiful and abundant, but ramp down in those peak periods that we showed you where everyone else needs that energy in society. This means data centers have the potential to support the grid and encourage more renewable development, not be a strain or a burden on the grid. And this is not a fantasy. Gridshare built, I think, what is New Zealand, if not the world's first data center built specifically for energy services and energy responsiveness, not for data center profits. We built this at a hydro dam in Southland. It's 2 megawatts of capacity, and it autonomously decides, based on demand in the grid, whether it should turn off or turn on. And the processes that we choose to run in that allow that energy flexibility. So the hydro dam is able to sell power to us when the grid doesn't want it, when the spot price for power is zero. They get a lot better than zero from us. But in the evenings and the mornings, we'll turn off. And in recent cases, as you might have heard, we were off for 28 days straight through August. It's a remarkable capability that no other industry that consumes and pays for energy flexibly can achieve. That's not all we're doing. We are moving on to tackle directly carbon emissions at landfill methane sites. So 90% of global landfills currently vent the methane directly into the atmosphere, an emission that is 80 times worse than CO2 that would result if you burned that methane. The reason that they vent it and they don't capture it and they don't burn it is because there's no incentive to. They're usually too far from a grid to put electricity from the methane combustion into the grid. So we're looking to resolve that problem and address that most urgent of emissions by taking our modular data centers out to those remote landfills. They can operate anywhere in the world, and that monetization of the methane incentivizes the capture of the methane, the whole infrastructure chain from capping the landfill to the generators to the data center itself. You're capable of earning carbon credits. It's recognized by the IPCC and the UNEP as a carbon positive, climate positive process. So this is one of those hideous AI generated pictures that you get when you put in utopia of energy future. I hate them, but I had to put it in there as a bit of a joke. I like the wind turbines there with 4 blades and all sorts of different weird angles. But in conclusion, my vision for the future as it relates to the energy transition in front of us and being regenerative in our practices would be to rethink how we balance energy, demand, and renewable supply. Utilize the renewable resources that we have in the moment, the minutes and the hours that we have it. Take that value and reinvest that into furthering the energy transition. We have the tools and technology today. It's not a fantasy. We can do it. Let's have a discussion about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That's really incredible to think that a data center, which when you kind of first think about it, is this suck of power, like you were saying before, actually could be one of the solutions to a pretty big problem that we're having in Aotearoa. Okay, so that's data centers. Now we're going to talk waste with Harmaan.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, we've gone to the wrong slides there, team. 2 seconds, caller.
Which is the next one?
Yeah, but just hang fire. Yeah, that's the one.
Hello. Are we constipated? Morena. Right. This image has been taken from the International Space Station. It's in geosynchronous orbit, approximately 400 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. I'd like to think that this picture was taken from one of the toilets on the ISS, but NASA hasn't confirmed that to me yet. But it provides context, right? We're looking down at the blue planet, our home. The reason we survive, or the reason we've evolved here, is because we have water. And I promise you, you're in for a treat. But coming back to Earth, this is the tragic reality of we discharge 80% of our wastewater into a receiving environment, usually the ocean, or sometimes into rivers and lakes. And this is a problem, obviously, for several reasons. But what's the failure condition? The failure condition is that we have insufficient energy. If we had to treat all of this wastewater, we would require a lot more energy. And while the world as a whole is energy constrained, how do we do that? But fascinatingly, our wastewater contains several multiples the amount of energy that we would need if we had to treat this waste. The challenge, of course, is how do you access the energy contained in the wastewater? And the answer lies in biomimicry. Nature holds all the solutions we need as a species to survive and thrive on our planet. So what does Alimentary Systems do? We build biodigesters that are inspired by the digestive system, the digestive mechanism contained in a cow. So in effect, we build mechanical cows. The other challenge with wastewater management is the focus has traditionally been on dealing with the nitrogen that wastewater contains. But therein lies a clue. Instead of trying to remove the nitrogen, what if we add carbon? And it works a treat. We're able to harness energy, we're able to treat the wastewater. But that begets the question, where does the carbon come from? It's everywhere. It's in all our organic waste. It's in your food waste. It's in your garden waste. It's in your green waste. It's in your hops, in your molasses, in your crop residue, in your grape mark, in your fruit pomace. All of this contains carbon. Which brings me now to the subject of today's chat. What's the regenerative economic ambition? The regenerative economic ambition is to utilize biomimicry, consolidate all our wastes in one place. This reduces the cost by avoiding the duplication of infrastructure. It allows us to recover the energy. It allows us to treat wastewater such that it is benign when it enters a receiving environment. In Te Ao Maori, there's a phrase for it. It's called Wai Maori, which means normal water. So don't discharge wastewater unless it is safe to drink. A very, very simple principle. And guess what happens? We have energy left over. And so, coming to what my ambition is, because Lisa asked me, so I need to answer that, is what if we could, at a snap of our fingers, deploy these systems globally? What would we achieve? We would wipe out a quarter of the world's emissions. Not only that, we would generate 6 terawatts of clean electricity. For context, that's nearly 10% of the current installed generation capacity around the world. It's ambitious, but ambition is the cornerstone of human endeavor. Meet Henry. Do we know who Henry is? He's Aotearoa's oldest living resident. He's estimated to be about 130 years old. Not only that, as a species, he and his family have been believed to have evolved somewhere between 200 to 250 million years ago. And this species is still found only in New Zealand. And part of the reason is this is the landmass that humanity got to last. But he also provides a fantastic context of time. As a species, we began to evolve somewhere between 1 to 2 million years ago. Modern humans, you and me, were barely 40 or 50,000 years old. We moved from hunter-gatherers to settled pastoralists maybe 10,000 years ago. And the fossil fuel age, energy and petrochemicals, that's driven us to this age of abundance that we have, which has caused us to have the hubris that we have, is just 200 years old. But we're today living in a land which has a species that is 225 to 250 million years old. And organic life as we know it, as we understand it, evolved 2.5 billion years ago. Put that into context. So, to conclude, I'd much rather continue to live on Earth and enjoy a Mars chocolate here on Earth. This is the only planet with photosynthesis, so let's take our planet back. Let's cherish what we have, and let's put aside silly ideas, no matter how technically feasible they might be, of trying to terraform another planet. And I promised you there's a treat waiting for you, so reach under your seats. Some of you just might get lucky. Thank you.
Wait. Nothing. Boo. Thank you so much, Harmaan. Thank you, Sam. Look, you've just heard some pretty feasible ideas of how a regenerative economy can be achieved. Has anybody found a treat, by the way? Whip up some other seats around you if you haven't. There's one over here. Woohoo! Any more? There are seats here. Yeah, we've got another one. Wonderful. And some more at the back. Great. Fantastic. I mean, who doesn't need sugar when you're already being plowed full of sugar in a day, eh? Okay, cool. So we've got a bit of an ask for you. Like I said earlier, we're really keen to hear what you feel are some of the challenges and opportunities in Christchurch NZ's regenerative economic ambition. You've got post-its on your tables. There is more information about the economic ambition on Christchurch NZ's website as well. But ponder what you've been told today by Sam and by Harmaan. They're going to wander around the tables as well, so if you've got questions for them, please feel free to ask. However, if you want to submit a question for everybody else to hear, then please submit it by the app and we will do a quick Q&A session at the end. So, write down, just with a little bit of quiet time, just ponder to yourself, take 2 minutes just to think about a challenge or an opportunity around the ambition. You will get an opportunity to talk about this, but just take 2 minutes to yourself. You've made something pretty incredible over there. That's fantastic. Well done. But yeah, just take a couple of minutes and start writing down some challenges and some opportunities around the ambition. Okay, so next up, pretty simple, just chat with your neighbours, hear their challenges, their opportunities. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why do you agree or do you disagree? It sounds like people are kind of just having that conversation already, but just please continue that conversation on. Just a reminder as well, if you want to ask our speakers a question, please submit your questions via the app. Sing out if you're having any problems with the app. Okay, team. Great work. Thank you so much. If I could invite Sam and Harmaan back on stage, we're going to do a quick Q&A before we wrap up and send you all on your merry way to your next session. So again, remember the questions are being submitted by the app. So if you've got something you want to know, flick something through there. Okay, we've got one for Harmaan. Let's actually go one for Sam first. So Sam, what safety measures or checks do you have and need within data centers? And could they ever be hacked and cause a big surge?
Really good question. You're talking about the risk of a data center impacting the grid in some way. And I think the worst thing that could happen at a data center like that is that it doesn't turn off when everyone needs power in the grid, right? One of the services that data center I showed in the photo does is it turns completely off when there's a disturbance in the grid. So there's no human involved. It's a backup for the resilience of the grid. So there's no way for a data center to consume more energy than is what is built into it. So really the risk would be that it doesn't turn off when you want it to. And I'd get a notification about that and go and resolve whatever bit of code caused that problem.
Thanks, Sam. And then Harmaan, over to you. What is the percentage of wastewater currently treated in New Zealand? Is it also only 20%?
No, so New Zealand has, from memory, 322 wastewater treatment plants, right? So the coverage extends to approximately 3.5 million people. So that's, wastewater systems are always designed as a function of population equivalency. So what that tells us is 3.5 million residents of Aotearoa have their waste going into wastewater treatment system, 1.5 million do not. So percentage-wise, that's about 70%.
I also had one that said, why did you pick the Mars bar?
Yes, that was, I think, that was something of a joke. Actually, it's a pun, because Mars chocolate bar, and we talk about terraforming Mars as potentially being the closest adjacent planet that we could potentially colonize as humans. So, hence. It was just a silly joke.
But a worthy one, definitely a worthy one. Sam, what is the percentage split of data center energy requirement versus the rest of New Zealand?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure how much traditional data center capacity that there is in New Zealand, but they're all very traditional. Ours is 2 megawatts, which honestly pales in comparison to the 600 or 700 megawatts that TY Point operates, which is about 12% of New Zealand. So hopefully that gives you some numbers to understand what our data center is in relation to New Zealand's capacity. But I would also point out that all of those numbers pale in comparison to the amount of renewable energy that is essentially a wash over New Zealand that we're not leveraging, we're not capturing, we're not utilising.
And lastly, thank you very much for that, Sam. Lastly, and we're quite short on time here, Harmaan, so just FYI, what's stopping the mechanical cows from being widely adopted?
The classic question, where has it been done before, right? So there is no precedent for innovation. So when you build something for the first time, there's a degree of disbelief. But we are building the first one. It will demonstrate the technology to an extent. It's a 10-ton per day scale, which is small when you consider that the total organics going to landfill around New Zealand is closer to 10,000 tons every day.